welcome to the Uninformed College Football Rants podcast. We are back after a bye week last week, and we have some good games lined up. We have a guest this week, Penn State superfan
Giuseppe G. Randazzo. And G, as you will see, the graphics for today celebrate the whiteout.
Outstanding. Is there, besides this podcast, is there a better environment for a college football game day?
There is not.
Yeah. Okay, we begin as customary with my personal top 10. Very biased, of course. Number 1, Michigan. 2, Tennessee. 3, Georgia. 4, Ohio State. 5, Clemson. 6, TCU. 7, Alabama. 8, USC. 9, Oklahoma State. 10, Penn State. Runners-up are 11, Oregon, and 12, Wake Forest. What do you think?
Oh, you're asking me. I think, well, first of all, number one, before I start and comment on your top 10, which are very solid, I want to say that I'm honored to be invited as a guest, especially as a Penn State super fan. So thank you for having me. I think your top 10 is pretty good. I'm a little biased. I've listened to some past podcasts. I know, Jack, once in a while you go with your heart, just as much as your brain, which I understand. Even as an adult, I do that sometimes as well. But Michigan number 1, I don't think that's that bad of a pick because. Look, they manhandled Penn State because we went in there with an atrocious game plan, in my opinion. But they look very good, and they've got talent everywhere. Your other picks I do like. Remind me, where did you have? Can you repeat? Where did you have someone like Tennessee?
Number 2, because they beat Alabama with Bryce Young, who was the Heisman winner and very well could repeat this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very fair argument. I think they're a very good team, and they'll have a tough test this week. I believe, if I recall correctly, they play Kentucky, who's got potentially a former Penn Stater, mind you. The Will Levis, who graduated from Penn State, lost the battle to Sean Clifford, and now is a star quarterback at Kentucky and likely to be a top first-round pick at quarterback. So that'll be a good game for Tennessee. I think, if I recall, did they play Kentucky today?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like your Jack. I think it's very good. What are your thoughts on? I know your dad's a big fan. What are your thoughts on USC? So, defense. Yeah, go ahead.
The defense is, they can make big plays, but they also turnovers, but they can't prevent big plays.
Right.
Utah had, I think it was a 73-yard touchdown run. Their D-line is horrendous.
Right. I do think they're on both sides of the ball. I think they're very capable offensively to create and have those explosive plays, but I do think they're very capable, unfortunately, to give up those explosive plays. So I agree with your analysis.
So it's just like they're gonna give up some explosive plays. That's the way it is. They're gonna give it up. The question is, can they also be opportunistic and make some big plays? Because they're not going to be like a lockdown defense. The question is, can they get enough stops and turnovers to support the offense? So, at Arizona today, they should be able to put up 500 points. The question is, can they restrict Arizona to 499 points?
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say if they're going to put up a basketball score against Arizona.
I think you're right.
Back to Tennessee. Next week, they have a really tough match against Georgia. That's going to basically be the SEC championship, I think.
I think that's fair, and I wonder when you have these types of games where you're playing in Kentucky, you have a lookover game, if you will. Do they take Kentucky too lightly, and do they look a week ahead and worry about Georgia too much? So we'll see. These are young kids playing in this type of atmosphere. Tennessee has not been in this position for a long, long time since, dare I say, the Phil Fulmer years.
Or Peyton Manning.
Yeah, that's right. Peyton Manning, he was a stud. So, yeah, we'll see what Tennessee does. It'll be interesting. There's a good slate of games. And speaking of Oregon, by the way, you just said Tennessee and Georgia, right? Speaking of Oregon's been pretty impressive. Besides their one loss, which was a blowout, admittedly, to Georgia early on in the season, besides their one loss, they've been pretty darn good with a former SEC quarterback in Bo Nix. He's been great out there.
Well, they shouldn't get too far ahead of themselves because I remember, last year, it's first game of the year, they go into the horseshoe, they beat Ohio State. This year, they beat a high-flying UCLA. But then the game after that, they take a really stupid loss. Like last year with Stanford. I think they should be on upset watch against Cal.
Interesting. Wow, interesting. I like it.
Because they're all pumped up about last week's win, and now they're going to fall flat against a nobody.
Ooh, we'll see what happens. I like the prediction.
On to our first question. Do you think that Tennessee has a shot at the CFP? I think yes.
And I would tend to, and I'm going to ask your dad too, I would tend to agree with that. I think they do have a shot at CFP, but like you said, there's no easy road for them. They've got some big games ahead of them, and there's other teams, the SEC. And I think one advantage Tennessee might have, being in the SEC, is, dare I say, depending on what else could happen, is they could get in with a one-loss season. I think they can make the CFP.
And and the SEC is starting to recruit outside of the Southeast region. I think that they should just change it from Southeastern Conference to Super Elite Conference, because it's kind of true.
Well, let's see. I think you're right. SEC has always been very good, not only in their own territory, picking up amazing talent, but now they're expanding. Let's see what happens with this NIL and see who can pull who in regarding when these kids are going to schools like Hendon Hooker. My understanding, he's already a multimillionaire at Tennessee because of the NIL. So we'll see what the NIL does and how it continues to change the game.
Yeah, now on to the question of the day. Ohio State, Penn State. What's going to happen there?
You know what? I'm going to sit back for a second. I would like to hear your dad, Keith Flanagan, address this, and then I'll have my take.
Okay. I believe that if Penn State has enough talent and good coaching, and if the stars align and they play their best game, that they can win.
Yeah.
It has to be maybe not a perfect day, but it would not be the most shocking upset in the world. There's not such a talent and performance gap that it's inconceivable that Penn State could win. It's just that Ohio State really looks locked down and formidable.
Yeah.
So
and the Whiteout, we don't actually know. We've never been to a Whiteout, and we're gonna make you take us sometime. But how tough an environment is it really?
So let me tell you this. I'm going to answer that question and go back to Ohio State, Penn State. So how tough an environment? Minnesota was number one in the country regarding flags as far as having penalties called on them. They had five illegal formations in the game because of the crowd. It is incredibly loud. The scene, the environment is amazing. I can think back to I think it was 2 years ago when Michigan played in a whiteout, and they came out to start the game, and you try to practice against the whiteout. They came out to start the game. They took a penalty on the first snap. It was so loud they couldn't even get the first snap out. And
didn't they have to call a timeout because it was so loud? And even then they couldn't hear Jim Harbaugh.
And not just loud, but extremely, hostile is the wrong word, because the Penn State's classy, but supportive of the home team. You feel it. It's not just the volume; it's the vibe, right? Is it the most intimidating home stadium? It's
so good question, Keith. And so here's where I go with my heart once again. I'm personally very biased, and I think not only is this one of the best environments in college sports, but potentially all sports. It is a very intimidating scene. And other stadiums now have tried to do it, the blackout, the maze out. It's just not the same. What you get when you go to Penn State, and ask Kirk Herbstreit, who's of course Ohio State grad, he thinks it's the best environment in all of sports. It's very amazing, and I'd be honored to take you guys at some point. But let me go back to real quick.
Wait, I'm sorry. Before you move on this topic, I don't know if you've heard our podcast with me and Uncle Brent, whom we love very much, and who's actually nice, not mean. But he's a Texas Uber super fan, okay?
Sure.
And he has a poor sense of perspective. So the amount that he cares is very, very high. That's the way that every Penn State fan is. There's not really a healthy sense of perspective. Almost everyone in that stadium is like a psycho. Like a Class E together, not going to throw batteries at Santa or anything, but super duper impassioned, and there's no one who matches. There's no higher level anywhere. Is that right?
I think that's fair. I mean, again, we're biased, and we do have I'm not sure how healthy it is, a sixth sense of the devotion we have towards Penn State. When you go to school there, and if you're a fan there, you're in an island. It's State College. That's all there is. That's the big city in that central PA region. There is no big city. You've got Philadelphia 3.5 hours to the southeast. You have Pittsburgh about 2.5, 3 hours to the west. So that's their big environment, and it supports a community. So yeah, we are. I don't know what they put in the water up there, but once you're indoctrinated to that type of school and scene, and it's in the blood. It's pretty scary, and I'm not sure. And honestly, we spend a lot of emotion on these Saturdays, like many fans. So it's a neat little environment. We raise our kids to feel the same way.
What's going to happen? So,
my opinion, to your point, I think Keith, you nailed it. I think Franklin, for some reason, while I think he's a very good coach non-game day, I'm suspect of his game day antics and how he calls games, but he always plays Ohio State tough. He's only 1-6 against them lifetime. However, it's always a close game and always a strong, but it's generally a close game. I think, like you said, I think we have to bring our A game or even A+ game. And if by chance there's a few hiccups and Ohio State brings their B or C game, I think we have a chance for an upset, which is, a 15.5-point dogs at home is quite offensive in my opinion. So I think there's a chance. But now when I speak realistically, this team, Ohio State, is very, very good offensively. And Jigba's not playing today. He didn't even travel. But they have 4 other 5-star receivers. It's ridiculous.
Okay, now it's time for my rant, like the big one. So basically, Ohio State, I don't think that they're as good as they are last year. They lost most of their good players to the draft. And did you say Njigba isn't even playing? He's their best player. I think that Stroud is only good because he had all of the tools to be good. He had Chris Olave, he had Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Wilson and Olave went to the draft, so did their tight end, whatever that guy's name was. And now they have Smith and Jigba isn't even traveling, so that's not good. And their defense is not great. But if Penn State, they need to be able to hold the run. That's what killed them against Michigan. So if they can't hold the run, they're going to lose. But if they have to play really good defense. If they play stout defense, they'll win.
Jack, from your lips to, as they say, God's ears, I hope you're right, my friend.
Yeah. Now on to our next topic. Wake Forest. What's going on with them? Do you think how good really are they? I mean, they took a double, triple overtime loss against Clemson, but they bounced back.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, it's funny. I was with a bunch of Clemson fans during that game and rooting for them hard. I think Wake Forest is, in my opinion, one of the surprises of the season. I think they're very good. I do question how good Clemson is. You saw Clemson last week barely beat Syracuse, and I know Syracuse is pretty good. But I think Wake Forest is very good. I think they're decent as far as what I know on both sides of the ball, and they've been playing tough. I think the top 10 for them or close to it is probably well deserved. And I'm surprised, because that's a team. Who would expect, outside of golf, who would expect Wake Forest to be good at any sport?
Yeah.
And kind of ugly WF emblem and helmets. I like the black and I like the shiny, but their logo is boring and undistinguished. And their stadium is
tiny. It's like a high school field.
It's like Northwestern.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like their WF logo was invented in 1850.
Right.
Now, speaking of Clemson, is Clemson back? I mean, at the start of the year, I was discrediting them because I was like, last year they barely won the Cheez-It Bowl against the 6-6 Iowa State. But now, I mean, I think that they could be competitive.
Jack, I think it's a really good question, but I hate to ask or answer a question with a question. My question to you is, before you determine how good Clemson is who's their quarterback? It took a benching of the starting quarterback and the backup to come in. So who's their quarterback right now? Are they, and is there a quarterback controversy in Clemson?
I think so, and I think that that's what could kill them towards the end of the season. I mean, but the thing is that at the start of the year, everyone thought Miami was going to be good because of Mario Cristobal and Tyler Van Dyke. But that was really the only other really good team in the SEC. Syracuse has been a surprise, but Clemson beat them. Yeah. So I think that Clemson will make the college football playoff simply because the ACC is such an easy conference. But then they're going to lose like a dumb loss to someone in the CFP. Like if they play like Michigan, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, any of those teams, they're going to get clobbered.
I'll tell you what, though. G makes a really good point. I don't even know who that kid was who stepped in and put points on the board. But how do you say the quarterback's name?
Uyagalele?
Yeah, I want his brother to go to USC, by the way.
I mean, that guy's pretty good.
He's not at the same level as
Trevor Lawrence.
Or like the
Deshaun Watson.
Or the Tennessee, Ohio State, or Alabama quarterbacks.
Hendon Hooker, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Michigan. I'll go back to Michigan. I mean, they had a big quarterback controversy at the start of the season with McCarthy and McNamara. I feel like if McCarthy develops more and steps up, they'll be really good. It's just that their running back, that guy Blake Corum, is just insane.
I think that's exactly right. Their offensive line is stout, and I think McCarthy, to your point, he's very good. He was a 5-star recruit, but he has the luxury, dare I say, don't get me wrong, the genetics in his family is beyond anything. He's very good. His completion percentage, I think, is upwards of around 70, but he does have the luxury of that running game and sitting behind a very stout offensive line. And, don't get me wrong, the guy's a track star. So I think...
he can scramble.
Yes, exactly. So
but he's not really he doesn't have that assassin's instinct.
Yeah, you might be right.
Not yet, at least.
What are our picks, Cheeks?
Now for the big segment, the big pick, Ohio State, Penn State. What's your pick, Father?
I hate to say it, but I hate to say it. I can't even say it.
You can say it. It's just
I want Penn State to win and think that they can, but I don't think they will.
What about you?
You know what? I'm going to. I'm not going to go with my heart this time, Jack. I'm going to say unfortunately, I think they keep it close. It's a much better game than they showed up against at Michigan. It is at home. I wish it wasn't a noon game, but I do think, unfortunately, Ohio State has just too much firepower. I think Penn State keeps it close for the first half, and I think, unfortunately, they're going to wear down, and Ohio State beats them by a touchdown.
So what I'm going to say is, if Penn State does everything right, they're going to win. But the probability that they do everything right, like everything, and Ohio State screws up at Penn State, a really important game, is low. I mean, can the whiteout environment change a lot? I'd say in general, yes, but Ohio State is sort of getting used to that. I mean, last time they played at the whiteout, they probably won by 20 points, I'd say, that one year. But
So your pick is?
So my pick is, I think Penn State's going to keep it really close. I'd say Ohio State on the last-second field goal.
Alrighty. Tennessee, Kentucky?
Tennessee.
Kentucky.
I'm going to go with Will Levis to Kentucky too for the upset. I think Tennessee's been riding high. I think they're going to have a slip up this week.
Okay, that is it for this week.
Wait, Michigan State, Michigan.
I think we already know the answer to that one.
Hey, G, thank you for joining us, buddy. It was our great pleasure. We appreciate your time and insights and wit.
That is it for this week. We will be back next week for some other big games. Bye.